Ever heard about Taiwanese superstitions? Get ready, because today we're going to deep dive into a bunch of them. Some are strange, some are funny, and honestly, they're all pretty interesting.
Definitely. And even if you don't plan to visit Taiwan, these beliefs really give you a good look into their culture.
Right, like their values and what they think is important. For example, did you know that whistling at night can be bad luck? Or giving someone shoes as a gift?
Yeah, it's wild how these little things can mean so much, right?
Totally. So let's start with that whistling thing. What's the deal with whistling at night in Taiwan?
Well, imagine you're walking alone at night, maybe in Taipei, and suddenly you hear someone whistling.
Okay, yeah, I'd be a little freaked out.
Exactly, it's a little unnerving. And in Taiwan, people believe that whistling at night actually attracts spirits. It's like you're calling them to you.
Oh, wow. So it's kind of like when people say, don't say a spirit's name in the dark, right?
Exactly, it's that same fear of the unknown. Darkness has always been kind of spooky for people, and in many cultures that means spirits.
Makes sense. Okay, so moving on from the creepy stuff, let's talk about gifts. I thought gifts were always a nice gesture, but apparently in Taiwan, got to be careful what you give.
For sure, for sure.
Like shoes. Why are shoes a bad gift?
It's all about homophones, words that sound alike but have different meanings.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the word for shoes in Mandarin sounds a lot like the word for evil or like separation.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so giving shoes as a gift, people see it as like inviting bad luck into someone's life or even like wanting to end a relationship.
Wow, so you could really mess things up with a pair of shoes. Are homophones a big thing in Chinese culture then?
Oh, huge. It's not just superstitions, it's like wordplay and idioms
Yeah.
and lucky numbers too. The sound of a word really matters.
That's so cool. Like there's this whole secret layer of meaning. So we've got shoes, but you also mentioned clocks as being bad gifts. What's wrong with clocks?
Okay, so giving a clock in Taiwan, it's a no-no because the phrase for giving a clock, it sounds just like the phrase for attending a funeral. Yeah, it's basically like you're wishing someone bad health or even death, which is a terrible message to send with a gift.
No kidding. So you don't want to be giving clocks as birthday presents then, huh?
Haha, definitely not. But there is a way to get around this whole bad luck thing.
Oh, really? How?
You just pay for the clock, like even a tiny amount of money. It's like you're buying it, and that cancels out the bad luck.
That's clever. Like, hey, I know this is bad luck, but let's not take it too seriously.
Right.
So we talked about bad luck gifts, but I bet there are lucky numbers too, right? Ones that people want in their lives.
Absolutely. Numbers are a big deal. Like the number 8, that's
Yeah.
super lucky. It sounds like the word for prosperity or wealth in Chinese.
Okay, so people are probably trying to get phone numbers and stuff with lots of eights, huh?
Oh, yeah, all the time. License plates, addresses, you name it.
I bet. But what about the opposite? Are there unlucky numbers too?
Yep. And the most unlucky one is 4.
4. Why 4?
It's pronounced CI in Mandarin, and that sounds almost exactly like the word for death.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So obviously people want to stay away from that, especially in places like hospitals. You'll even see some buildings that just skip the 4th floor entirely.
No way. Like, it's just gone.
Gone. It's crazy how deep these beliefs run, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating. And speaking of everyday things, what about food? Any food superstitions we should know about?
There are a few. One that comes to mind is about chopsticks and rice.
Okay.
You should never, ever leave your chopsticks standing straight up in a bowl of rice.
What? Why? I didn't know that.
It's considered really disrespectful because it looks like, incense sticks at a funeral.
Oh, right. I see it now. Like, I just recreated a funeral on my dinner table.
Exactly. And respecting ancestors is so important in Taiwanese culture. Funerals and death rituals are really sensitive.
Wow, so it's not just bad manners, it's way deeper than that.
Exactly. It makes you think about how much symbolism there is in even simple things.
You're right.
Oh.
Okay, let's switch gears for a second, talk about hotels. Any superstitions about hotels in Taiwan?
One thing that's really common is knocking on the door of your hotel room before you go in.
Really? Even if you just checked in and know it's empty?
Yep. It's about acknowledging that there could be unseen entities there, like spirits.
Oh, okay. So it's like, excuse me, anyone home before I come in?
Yeah, exactly. It's just a way of being respectful and not disturbing anything that might be there.
I like that. It's got a nice thought. And are some rooms considered worse than others? Like, more likely to have spirits?
Some people think that rooms at the end of a hallway have weaker energy flow and might be more prone to, spiritual stuff.
Ah, I see.
It's all tied into this idea of feng shui, which is about energy in a space.
Wait, that's a whole other topic, isn't it?
It is. Maybe we can dive into that later, but yeah, maybe stick to the middle of the hallway if you want to play it safe.
Good to know. All right, I think it's a good place to pause. We've covered so much already. We'll be back in a bit with more on Taiwanese superstitions. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. I'm curious, what's been the most interesting superstition for you so far?
It's just crazy how these little things like whistling or a gift can mean so much, you know?
Yeah.
It really makes you think twice.
Yeah, totally. And it all ties back to this big idea of balance and harmony, which is really important in Taiwanese culture.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
It's like many Taiwanese people believe that if you want a good life, you have to have a good relationship with the unseen world, with spirits and stuff.
Oh,
So you got to respect boundaries, not do things that mess up the natural order.
so all these superstitions, they're kind of like rules for dealing with that unseen world.
Exactly. And a lot of them are connected to feng shui, too. Have you heard of that?
Oh, yeah, but I don't really get it. Isn't it just about arranging your furniture the right way?
It's more than that. It's like aligning yourself with the energy of a space. It affects everything from buildings to even picking a good date for a wedding.
Wow. So how does feng shui fit in with the superstitions we've been talking about?
Well, a lot of them come from wanting to keep that good energy flowing, that harmony, like knocking on the hotel door. It's not just about spirits, it's also about not messing up the energy in the room.
Ah, okay. So it's like asking permission from the universe before you go in.
Exactly. It's about respect, even for things you can't see.
I like that. And what about that thing you mentioned earlier about moving during ghost month? How does that fit into all this?
So, Ghost Month, that's the seventh month in the lunar calendar. And people believe that during this time, the line between the human world and the spirit world is super thin.
Okay.
So, everyone's got to be extra careful not to disturb the spirits.
So moving during ghost month, that would be like a big no-no, right?
Right. It's like you're rocking the boat, maybe making the spirits angry.
It makes sense.
It's all about being aware of the consequences of our actions, recognizing that we're part of this whole system, this balance between the seen and the unseen.
That's pretty deep, actually. And it seems like respect plays a big role, too. Respect for ancestors, for spirits, for that balance you were talking about.
Yeah, for sure. Respect is really important in Taiwanese culture.
So far, we've talked a lot about avoiding bad luck. But are there any rituals for actually attracting good luck? Or like for achieving something you want?
Tons. Rituals are everywhere in Taiwan. It's how people deal with big life events,
Right.
weddings, births, new businesses, all that. It gives them a sense of control.
So it's not just about avoiding the bad, it's also about bringing in the good.
Exactly. Like, remember we talked about giving pineapples as a housewarming gift?
Yeah.
That's a good example. The pineapple, it symbolizes prosperity coming your way.
It's like a built-in good luck charm.
Yeah.
And I think you also mentioned sprinkling salt at the door of a new house, right?
Yeah, sea salt. It's
I know.
supposed to purify the space, get rid of any bad energy.
I love how these simple things can be so meaningful. What other kinds of rituals are there?
Well, there are big, elaborate ceremonies for weddings and births, of course, and even for things like opening a new shop. People will consult a feng shui expert to pick the best date and time.
Wow. So it's like every big moment has its own special ritual to make sure it goes well.
It's like that, yeah. It connects people to their past, to tradition, and to their hopes for the future, and it creates a feeling of community.
It's beautiful, actually. Not just about superstitions, it's about belonging and making sense of life together.
I think so too. It's about that human need for comfort, for asking for blessings, for trying to find order in a world that can feel pretty chaotic sometimes.
This has been so eye-opening, honestly. Taiwanese superstitions aren't just random things. They're part of this whole system of beliefs and values. And a big part of that is respect, like we were saying.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. And even if we don't believe in all these things ourselves, it's important to try to understand them. It shows us how different people see the world.
Absolutely. Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground here, but I'm sure there's more to talk about. Let's take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll wrap things up and give our listeners something to think about.
Sounds good. We'll be back soon to finish our deep dive into Taiwanese superstitions. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We've been talking all about Taiwanese superstitions, and I gotta say, it's been pretty mind-blowing.
I know, right? Who knew there were so many cool beliefs out there?
Yeah, and they all tell us so much about Taiwanese culture. It's amazing. We talked about whistling at night, what you can and can't give as gifts, lucky and unlucky numbers, and even that idea of balance and harmony.
Definitely. And I think that idea of respect is a big part of it too. Respect for their ancestors, for the unseen world, for keeping things balanced.
Yeah, that really stuck with me. It's not just about avoiding bad luck. It's about understanding that we're connected to something bigger.
Exactly. And it's not just in Taiwan. Every culture has its own superstitions. They've been around forever.
That's true. It makes you realize that we all share this desire to understand the world, to feel like we have some control over what happens to us.
Yeah, and to find meaning in things that we might not fully understand.
Speaking of, we wanted to leave you with something to think about. Imagine you could create your own superstition based on your own culture. What would it be?
What symbols would you use? What actions? What would it tell people about your values and beliefs?
We'd love to hear what you come up with. Share your ideas with us on social media, and let's see what we can learn from each other.
It's a good reminder that even in today's world, there's still a place for mystery and tradition and things we can't explain.
Absolutely. So next time you hear about a superstition, whether it's from Taiwan or somewhere else, don't just dismiss it. Think about what it might really mean. You might be surprised by what you discover.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe you'll even find yourself picking up a few new superstitions along the way.
Well, that's all the time we have for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored the world of Taiwanese superstitions.
It's been a pleasure. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.